Afternoon. Yeah, hi, Mike.
Haven't
How are you
spoken.
doing?
I'm good. Haven't spoken to
No,
you for a while, which is kind of
no.
testament to the fact that COVID has very much, for me anyway, kind of slipped out the door to some extent, and
Yeah.
it's now a kind of in a waiting room area. It's no longer in, the crisis centre.
And just when you thought it was safe to stop panicking, the Daily Mail tells you this is the worst variant ever, says the headline. And then it says this may be vaccine resistant,
Right.
and it may be more transmissible. Well,
Yeah.
you and I may win Strictly Come Dancing next year
Well,
as a
right.
couple.
But it's
Who
like
knows what's going to happen?
yeah. I mean, it's like when people say, this is a very often used phrase by many journalists. How concerned should we be?
Yeah,
Well, I
yeah.
mean, I could be concerned about any number of things. I could be
Yeah.
concerned about a plane flying in through the window here, for example, or I could be concerned about my car crashing into something on the way down to Sussex.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean anything's going to happen, does it?
No. Now, the evidence that this virus may be more transmissible is that two guys who shared a hotel both got it. Well, that sort of thing happens. And also, one man in Hong Kong caught this virus when he'd been vaccinated twice. Well,
Right.
I've got news for you, Mike.
Yeah.
I'm not at home today. I usually work from home on a Friday. I'm in clinic because one of our doctors who's had 2 vaccines has got COVID.
Yes.
So we know that the vaccines protect you from going into hospital and from dying, but they don't stop you catching the virus. So the fact that someone's caught this new variant when he's been vaccinated means nothing at all.
Right.
It's a massive scare story. You say, what should we do with the information? I think the narrative is always get vaccinated if you can, and I would encourage people to be vaccinated. There's still a lot of anti-vax talk out there, a lot of scare stories against vaccines. But this new if you remember earlier in the year, every time a variant came out, we were told it was resistant to vaccines and that it was worse than ever. That's gone quiet for a while. So this has just given the headline writers and something new to talk about. Now that our cases are stabilizing, our hospitalizations are actually going down, and they're running out of UK scare stories. They're scouring the world. Germany's doing Germany's doing badly.
Well, do you remember when we had one of those periods where we were doing quite well, and then suddenly everybody started looking to India, where apparently things were going horribly wrong. Yeah. And every night on the news, we were led to believe that people in India were literally dropping like flies outside hospitals. They didn't have any oxygen, and that was leading the news for about a week.
Yeah. And of course, India's doing quite well now, which tells me that with the benefit of hindsight, I know this may sound cruel and critical, with the benefit of hindsight, we probably should have encouraged herd immunity right from the start. A bit of a lockdown in March 2020, fine. Maybe a lockdown last December when the Kent variant was rampant, fine. But for the rest of the time, what we've learned now, and I'm not, it is hindsight, so it's easy to judge in hindsight, we should allow herd immunity because having COVID is much better protection than having 2 or even 3 vaccines.
But I put that very point to Sajid Javid some weeks ago, and he refused to sort of acknowledge it. He basically said, look, it's very difficult to measure herd immunity. It's very difficult to measure antibodies in any given person's body because it depends on how they got it, how long they had it for, what sort of viral load they had. But surely there's a way of testing for antibodies, isn't there?
Sure, yeah. Although the antibodies do fade after a few months, but your T-cell immunity, which we can also test for, that lasts a long time. And it's gone quietly. There is a report today, which something I've been saying for a long time, which says that no one has caught COVID badly twice.
Right.
I know a few people that have caught it mildly twice, but the vast majority of people, such as myself, who had COVID last December, will not catch it again, whether it's this new variant or any other mutation that's going to come in the future. So if you look at what Sweden did, they pursued a form of herd immunity model, and they're doing quite well at the moment.
Yeah.
Whereas the countries that thought they could go for a zero COVID strategy just can't achieve that. No. This is a horrible, nasty virus. It seems to find all the gaps in the system. It finds the unvaccinated, it finds the vaccinated people who are exposed to the virus. We all thought there'd be a herd immunity threshold, that when 70, 80% of the population was vaccinated or had it, the virus would disappear. Well, it isn't. And now whether this means it's probably some sort of man-made virus or not, I don't know. But it is a very, very contagious virus.
It is.
Fortunately with the vaccines, it is not killing people the way it was.
Right. And it's still very mysterious, isn't it, Laurence, in terms of how differently it seems to affect people? Because, again, I mean, I know plenty of people who, for example, got the first 2 vaccinations, absolutely no problem at all, got the 3rd vaccination and were quite ill with it. I also know people who have had it more than once. I also know people who are still suffering from what they call long COVID. I was with a guy last night, actually, who said he still can't really smell anything. He still doesn't really have his full taste buds back again. And he's tired quite a lot of the time. Lots of other people, on the other hand, who've had it and are absolutely fine.
Yeah, it is a strange virus. And I know when I had it, I've never really had flu. I've had coughs and colds.
Yeah.
But the virus did things to me that no other virus has ever done. And I felt at the time that if you told me this was a man-made virus, I believe it. And the whole taste and smell thing is very interesting. But I was talking about this with someone yesterday.
Yeah.
We take it for granted that it's a respiratory virus, so it might affect your nose and it might affect your taste. But actually, my sense of this is it's via the brain. This virus is affecting the taste and smell centers in the brain, not in the nose or the tongue. But it's somehow it's the perception of taste and smell, not the nerve endings themselves, which are being affected. And if that's the case, this is a very, very strange and interesting virus. But there's still no reason to worry about this new variant, which will hopefully, the new variant, as it's called, will hopefully go the way of the other variants and be very similar. What we see with these viruses is they do mutate, usually to become more contagious but less deadly.
Yes.
Because that is what the virus does to survive. And my hope and guess is that's what's going to happen with this new variant.
Yes. And I always ask you, Laurence, and I temper it with knowing that you're not absolutely sitting right in the middle of a GP surgery in the NHS, but what is your kind of daily intake now on the COVID front? Anything moving on? Anything happening?
I've spoken to you at times when we've had no COVID at all.
Yes.
I've told you one of our doctors and her daughter have got COVID at the moment. Right. So we're seeing a few more cases, no hospitalizations whatsoever. I've just seen a guy who's flying back to the States who came here. He's been isolating for 10 days. So I'm seeing more COVID now than we did, during the very quiet periods, but no one is ill at all. I can't remember the last time one of my patients had to go anywhere near a hospital or needed oxygen or needed antibiotics. So if this is what the vaccines do, fine. Let's treat this like another virus. Oh, parenthetically, Mike, there's no flu this year. We normally would see an upsurge in flu at this time of year. There hasn't been any.
Well, we were told there would be, wouldn't one of the warnings that was given out a while ago was that we'd have a bad flu season because we didn't have one last year.
Yeah, we're going to have a terrible flu season, and the flu virus is going to combine with COVID, and people will be dropping in the streets. If you look at the figures, compare it with 2 years ago, the flu numbers are way, way down on where they could be at this time of year, which is a good thing. Yeah. And without being cruel, some of the people who might have died of flu this year, maybe they're the ones that will lose out to COVID. So look, there are signs for optimism, and as you say, people are going about their normal daily lives. And because of the tube strike, my train was very crowded this morning as well. So
yeah, it's great, isn't it? Great time to have a tube strike, and particularly, I think there's going to be one tomorrow, when a lot of people are going to be trying to get to football and stuff like that. I mean, it just beggars belief. But let's just go back to the vaccine for a minute, because you said that your advice is for people to get vaccinated. But what about the kids? Because we're told that children down to 12 should be getting it. We saw a report from the new Public Health England, whatever they're called now, saying that if you have had it as a 12 or 13-year-old, you should wait 3 months and then get vaccinated. And you're kind of going, why are they still pushing this on the children and talking like they are in America, for example, of going all the way down to 5-year-olds?
No, I've been very consistent, and everything I've seen supports my view, which is yes, 18 and over, give the vaccine. Yeah. I was never keen on the 16 to 18-year-olds. No. And I've been very clear that the 12 to 15-year-olds shouldn't be vaccinated. Their risk of catching COVID and getting ill from it is so small that any possible risk of the vaccine doesn't justify vaccinating those young people. And as you say, they're talking about 5-year-olds, which is a nonsense. I know it may be the vaccine manufacturers pushing it. It may just be people in authority, as always, drunk with power when they have this situation. But I don't see any reason for young teenagers, or certainly not children, to be vaccinated. There are small risks. I'm not going to sit here and pretend the vaccine doesn't have side effects. I've seen side effects myself. I know one person who's had a serious adverse event, but that didn't stop me getting 3 vaccines, nor advising my patients to get as many vaccines as they can.
No, right. And I mean, presumably, depending on how well you can predict the future, there will come a point next year when either people will say, well, you better get a fourth one because the third one's wearing off, or it will have disappeared to the point where you don't need anything.
Well, we're obviously entering this winter period. My prediction is February half term. After that, things will fade away. So by April, May next year, that COVID will decrease dramatically. But you're absolutely right. I'm sure people will be talking about fourth vaccinations because there will be cases and hospitalizations and deaths between now and next March and April. So I'm sure that I know for a fact the NHS app is set up for a fourth vaccine. So I'm sure that people are thinking about that. I'm hoping that we don't get to that stage. I'm hoping we don't need it. But there's no doubt we're going to have a slightly, we're running at 40,000 positive tests in the UK at the moment. I think that will stay where it is until the children break up from school just before Christmas. Then the numbers are going to drop dramatically over Christmas and pick up again in January when people go back to school. January is obviously a winter month, so there'll be a little bit of hurly-burly there. And then, as I say, February half term when people go on holiday could be an issue. But I'm optimistic. March, April, we will hopefully see the end of this, not just in the UK, but worldwide. And that's what we need to see so we can all forget about COVID or treat it as just like another virus and live our lives as normally as possible.
Yeah. And when will we see the NHS returning to proper organised and well-planned proceduring? Because basically they're still not really back to normal. They're still claiming that, COVID is a reason to close things and keep people away from doing other things and, creating log jams and creating difficulties, and they need to get past that, don't they?
When will the NHS be back to normal? Not in your or my lifetime, Mike, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
It'll lurch from one crisis to another. As you know, there are issues going on at GP level. There's huge backlogs in hospital. There's systemic over-regulation and documentation, staff sickness, staff shortages. The NHS is a huge organisation, a complex organisation. No one's going to pretend there's an easy solution to this. Just before I came on air to you, I saw GPs now saying they want to be paid item of service, not this capitation fee.
Right.
Which in one sense is good. It's what you and I have been talking about, pay £10 to see your GP. But I think the GPs are obviously talking about the government paying them per patient.
Yeah.
And I think if that happened, you'd suddenly see a massive increase in number of consultations done.
Yeah.
And I know, having worked both in the NHS and out of it, as soon as you move into an item of service payment system, doctors really do work very hard and very fast. I'm a doctor myself, but you can motivate doctors the way you can any other care worker. And I've seen it. It's quite dramatic, the difference between telling someone they're on a basic salary and telling someone they're going to be paid X pounds for every patient they see. It makes a massive difference to the workload. Now, I doubt that will happen, but I think if that's what the GPs are asking for, then it's a move in the right direction. And maybe the next logical step would be that there'd be a co-payment system whereby the government pays some of the fee and the patients who can afford it pays the other part of the fee. And maybe that will take the heat, not just out of general practice, but out of accident and emergency. I've had patients come to me this week saying 9 hours in A&E and they gave up. And that's, you see, when things spill over from general practice, that's where the pressure goes. And if A&E is full up, that pressure goes all the way through the hospital. So the NHS can't return to normal in the foreseeable future because of all these complexities and issues.
Which is crazy, really. But listen, Laurence, thank you very much indeed. Dr. Laurence Gerlis, GP at Same Day Doctor.